Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek through the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on now Volume 9. I know this is 8. I'm waiting for 9 to come in. It's shipping. It's on the way. I am now getting Volume 3, 7, and 9, which will complete my collection of everything released so far, and I could not be more excited to have all the physical releases of it. But yes, Volume 9, been really great so far. I've actually read all the way up to Chapter 4. I'm hoping to actually get to Chapter 4 in this video, but it's all depends on how much I talk. We'll see. Like, doing just Chapters 1 and 2 and extra is like a little bit too little, and geez, 3 and 4 are long. But we'll see. We'll see how things go. I do want to start off by saying Vsauth in the last Mushoku Mondays pointed out something that I didn't even think about last Mushoku Monday, and now it makes me really angry. Vsauth pointed out the fact that, yeah, if you think about it, Rudius did to Linnea and Persenna exactly what was done to him. Well, not exactly, but pretty darn close to what was done to him in his previous life. And I'm surprised the writer didn't point that out. Like, I'm surprised it really didn't get into Rudius's mind and realizing, holy crap, I did exactly what was done to me. What was done to him in his previous life? These bullies essentially stripped him naked and hung up on a wall and did, laughed at him and everything and mocked him and did horrible stuff to him. What did he do to Linnea and Persenna? He tied them up into chairs, let them sit there until they relieve themselves, and then he stripped them half naked and washed them down, all the while thinking about them pervertedly. Yes, it's mocking and demeaning versus harassment, and all that kind of stuff, and sexual harassment, but dang, woof. Woof, like, good point, Vsauth. That really hurt when I thought about that. I'm like, dang, I'm surprised that Rudius himself did not catch himself at some point and go, wow, I did the same thing. I'm a hypocrite. I literally tied somebody up, stripped them naked. It hits. It's very hypocritical. And again, kind of a missed opportunity by the writer. Now, maybe later on he'll remember that and go, dang, wait, I did that. But for now, oof, Rudius. Big oof. Like, it makes that whole scene sting more. Like, I couldn't excuse it. Like, when that whole thing happened, it was like, oof, there's Rudius acting like old Rudius doing inappropriate things. Can't justify it. It's just him. At the same time, never thought about it in that deep perspective and just how wrong that was. But anyways, thanks for pointing that out. That's very, very interesting. But, woof. Anyways, let's get into Volume 9. Let's put that behind us and go into Volume 9. Opening up Chapter 1 of Volume 9, we have the Gifted Cliff Grimoire. This kind of gives us a perspective of what kind of led up to Cliff from the point he was in Millis all the way up to the current day. And that's the fact that, yes, he's a grandson of the Mills Church's Pope and very talented, egotistical, pompous braggart. For this, on his 15th birthday, while he was at the university itself, even though it is the typical coming-of-age time where everybody celebrates a big, huge celebration, nobody came. Nobody was there for it. He had no friends. He's a loner. But yes, now that he's in his second year there, he's 16 years old now. As we usually typically ask, how did he get to the university? It's a big question mark there. Well, yes, after the whole assassination attempt on the Blessed Child way back here, the whole Edis Goblin Slaying chapter, after that whole Blessed Child assassination attempt, things went crazy within the Mills Church itself, a lot of conflicts within there, and his grandfather, the Pope, sent him off. He wanted to send him off to safety, so he sent him all the way to the Renoa University. His parting words were, "You have the potential to be a great man someday, Cliff. Don't let yourself grow self-satisfied. Know your flaws and work to overcome them," which I think is actually some really strong words here that eventually kind of come into play in this chapter. I honestly believe with these first two chapters, while I'm not a fan of Cliff, I've at least seen that he's grown. He's a pompous braggart. He's annoying. He's a bratty little kid. And yeah, I've had no signs before this that I'm going to like this guy. But at least through these two chapters, I sort of see that he kind of corrects himself. That's all I can really ask for somebody, just to correct yourself. You don't have to apologize. You can apologize, but just correct your path here. Get yourself focused here. Cliff at this time, yes, he believed in himself. He believed that he possessed special gift. He was a prodigy, though he wasn't as talented as Edis. Somebody that defeated these assassins with a blink of an eye. And again, I like the fact that he kind of seen things completely different than what we kind of seen. And the idea that Eris almost died, it was really the fact that Therese acted when she did, that she would have, she kind of prevented Eris from being poisoned and probably dying. No, he just seen some magical fairy tale where Eris handled it all quickly. By herself. She sort of mostly did. That said, the Kingdom of Renoa was a culture shock for him. Obviously, going from the country of Milis to the Renoa University, or at least Renoa itself, people act a little bit differently. It's not like a bunch of people that are entrenched in the faith down there. Still, he trusted his talent. He was a cut above the rest. A special student that, yes, one day would be in charge of the Church of Milis. Sadly, Cliff was embarrassed in his first year at the university. The first time was due to Zenoba Chiron. A blessed child. He once seen him lift a man 3 times his weight by his head. Cliff couldn't understand why Zenoba needed magics, and he was painfully slow at learning it. Here was some more interesting stuff that was added to the whole blessed child thing. Some scholars theorize that magic had been originally developed by the ancients as a means to help common people imitate the divine powers. And of course, a blessed child was a human manifestation of those very powers. There was hardly a reason for one of God's elect to trifle with casting spells. Again, it's sort of implying this idea that you're already a gifted of the divine. Why would you want to use magic? So Cliff approached Zenoba and asked, why is he learning magic? We all know the answer to this. He immediately shows his figurine, says he wanted to create these wonderful figures just like Master. He wanted to learn the basics of magic before being reunited with his master. And Cliff realized he had a dream. Cliff had given up on his own dreams due to his expectations for his position. Of course, he wanted to be an adventurer, but he knew one day he's going to have to become the Pope. He assumed that one day Zenoba would go back to doing his responsibilities. He doesn't know Zenoba's whole situation here. He doesn't know that Zenoba was exiled. He figures Zenoba's going to do his lessons here and then go right back to Chiron and be a prince. But yet he still kept a thread of the one thing he wanted to do. Like Cliff sees Zenoba is still holding on to his dream, unlike him who he's given up on it. So, for that reason, he looked at Chiron with respect. Then, he learned that Zenoba's master was Rudius Greyrat. It was a harsh blow to his ego. This person that he looked up to was looking up to somebody that Cliff didn't like. Rudius Greyrat was a name that he had locked up after Eris rejected him. And apparently that was his first embarrassment. The second embarrassment was at the hands of Linnea and Priscilla. He assumed in a mage battle he would be superior. Even professors were no match for him. So he talked down to Linnea and Priscilla, and then one time finally set him off. Priscilla had quickly cast beginner tier magic to interrupt him when he cast his spell, and Linnea drew in close and beat him black and blue. He then retreated back to his room and cried. Told himself it wasn't a fair fight. It was 2-on-1. But it taught him a lesson. This is where you start to see him as a character sort of shifting. It taught him a lesson that there was people out there that were more powerful than you. This is something he never realized before. It never really kind of dawned on him. He's always been the greatest ever. Again, he's seen Eris as amazing, but he always assumed in magic, I'd never lose. And he lost. He finally realized that knowing advanced magic didn't make him and himself powerful in combat. He could no longer rely on his professors. He had to refine his own craft. He had to better himself. He couldn't just rely on the lessons. He had to craft his own style. He had to eliminate his weaknesses. Again, going back to the words of his grandfather. But of course, the shocks didn't end for Cliff then. Another pair of shocks came around his second year in his university. Rudius Greyrat arrived. He wore these shabby robes. He had this look of uncertainty. He was submissive to everybody, always talking himself down. And he constantly leered at nearby women. There was nothing manly about him. Again, he had this mental image, this picture in his head when Eris and Zenoba talked about him of this great man. Then people were claiming that he beat Fitz. He had to be a fraud. He just assumed Rudius wasn't great. He must be doing some sort of tricks. But then Rudius demonstrated his skills. He casted without incantations. He made Linnea and Priscilla his subordinates. He won over Fitz, and he had some sort of innate hunger for knowledge of all kinds. He was just as devoted as Cliff was, and considerably more talented. His achievements were far more impressive. Now here's the cool part. The realization that Rudius was great wasn't a shock to Cliff anymore. He was able to accept it. And he sort of assumes that's because of everything that happened with Zenoba And the fact that he was defeated by Linnea and Priscilla, again, it sort of set him down this path of correcting himself. He at this point acknowledges that Rudeus was destined for greater things, far greater things than Cliff himself. Again, I kind of respect the idea this is a slow progress for Cliff. He sort of needs a beat down. He kind of gets his face shoved in the mud, and then when he wakes up from it, he realizes, dang, I'm not that great. I'm not all powerful. But in that slow progression of seeing Rudeus is sort of the real deal. Like, this is no longer me being in denial here. Now I can see it. I can see it with my own two eyes. I'm no longer making these assumptions that he's just a fraud. He's faking people out. He's tricking people. No, I can't really deny this anymore. He's not friends with him. That's for later on. But at least he sort of is able to acknowledge that I'm not that great, and Rudeus isn't some sort of thing I envision as being a fraud. And yes, finally, the second shocking thing that happened in his second year. He looked up and found himself gazing upon a goddess. Leaning on a windowsill with listless expression, golden hair fluttering in the breeze, it was love at first sight. Suddenly, the girl looked down at him and waved with a smile. He was born to meet this woman, and she him. Suddenly, his love for Edis was demoted to the status of an acquaintance. What's up, guys? Welcome to the stream. This is Cliff Grimoire. I'm going to be doing a tier list for the best waifus of Mushoku Tensei. All right, Edis is S tier. Yes, Edis S tier. All right, what's the next one? Whoa. Edis is now D tier. Elena Elise is S tier. I got a kick out of this because when I first read this, I immediately assumed it was Ariel. Because Ariel's got the whole golden hair thing going on. She's an angel to everybody. So my mind immediately went to Ariel, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this. Are we gonna ship Cliff and Ariel? I guess a Pope. I don't know. I don't know how well that's gonna run with Ariel and all. Whatever. We'll see. I had no idea it was going to be Ellen Elise. If I'd known it was Ellen Elise back here, I would have laughed out loud. Ariel was just like, I don't know if that's going to work out, dude, but sure, let's go with this. Let's see how this goes. Crazy. Now that we're all caught up on that, now we shift to the perspective of Rudeus. Time for his monthly appearance at homeroom. He was surrounded by Zenoba, Julie, Linnea, and Priscilla. It was nice for him for once in a school setting to be pretty much the center of his own little group. He's now the popular guy, basically. He's no longer the bully kid. He's now the popular guy. Linnea, as usual, had her feet up on the desk, showing off her thighs. You never stop staring at my legs, boss. I guess you're just another tomcat at heart. Can't blame me, though. I'm criminally sexy. Go on. Take a little peek inside. Yeah, get your hands out of there. Yes, Rudeus took her up on her offer and stuck his hand right inside of his skirt, groping her thigh. But unfortunately, yes, as usual, his little man not reacting. Yeah? Don't look all disappointed. You're the one who decided to grope me. What's so bad about my legs anyways? He honestly found more pleasure in actually touching her ears and her tail because it was relaxing. Priscilla was admittedly softer, but she wouldn't let you touch without payment. Of course, she would do pretty much anything for meat. He's sort of worried for Priscilla in the future, like afraid that some guy would take advantage of the fact that all you have to do is give her some really good meat and she'll let you pretty much do anything. At this point, unfortunately, Zenoba had pretty much fallen to the bottom of the hierarchy. Though Zenoba seemed more concerned about his status as being Rudeus' first student, though can't really be that because technically he teaches Sylphie, Edis, and Ghislaine. Still, Rudeus calmed him by appointing him as the first figure-making student. Of course, Julie being the second. Julie was honestly really attentive in learning about the wonders of figurines and grew in interest, though she wasn't at the point yet to be able to start talking about the finer details of figure designing like Zenoba and Rudeus was doing. But she was taking her first steps as a silent spellcaster, something Master Fitz was correct about. But she was young, she made mistakes, making a leg swollen like a water balloon. She just didn't have the control yet to make something of really small scale. And yes, since she feared him still, you had to be very kind, very careful about his words and encouraging her. We had a little conversation here about the fact that Priscilla and Linnea have this really nice place to nap at that they were going to show Rudeus, and he mentioned the fact that he's wondering if he could do perverted things to them while they napped. Linnea questioned if sex was the only thing Rudius ever thinked about, pretty much Linnea. As they were talking, they got louder. Eventually, Cliff stood up and told them, "Please, would you shut up?" While Rudius, Zenoba, and Julie took these words and kind of quieted down, Linnea and Persenna obviously took it as a challenge. "Who do you think you're mouthing off to, kid? From now on, your money is my meat." Rudius knew that they had beat Cliff before, and that he had devoted himself after that to his studies. Rudius admired him, motivating himself after a setback, kind of assuming here that he's sort of equating himself to himself. He got beat down in his previous life, and he didn't keep going. He fell away. Yet Cliff here had this happen, and he kept moving forward. "Sorry about that, Cliff. Didn't mean to distract you from your studies. We'll keep it down from now on. Come on, you two. Down, down." "If you say so, boss." Yeah. Freaking Persenna. What is with the F word, Persenna? I wonder what the original word is that she's using. Typically, you don't really have them say the F word. Cliff snorted. "Well, that's all I wanted. Honestly, you people are ridiculous. I can't believe you roped Zenoba into your nonsense." Rudius didn't consider himself a slacker, but he still figures that Cliff and himself are kind of heading down different roads. They would be nothing more than acquaintances. And the usual Refugian ending, "at least I thought at the time," always ends that way. Again, I do respect the fact that despite Rudius getting in the situation where he's sort of the center of attention, he's got a posse now within a school, he's not getting into his head. He still respects people outside of his circles. If he were any other kind of bully group, again, even though we're talking about the fact that he tied up these two girls and did bad things just like what was done to him, he still kind of respects people around him. Like when Cliff speaks up, even though Cliff speaks up and says, "shut up," he doesn't go, "Dude, chill your words or we're gonna get you." No, he's kind of like, "Sorry, dude. Didn't mean to. We'll settle down." A week later, he's still studying teleportation with Fitz. He began to understand teleportation bore certain similarities to summoning magic. The summon circles were much alike. The color of the magical energy that released when activating them were identical. Again, if we think back to way back here when Petagus was checking out the whole displacement incident while it was charging up, or at least the mana and everything that was kind of building up, he said it was the same color as when they summoned his fortress. So that, again, implies that there's a similarity there. If it was teleportation magic, it would be the same color as when he summoned it, so it makes sense. They had one difference, though. It was impossible to summon a human being. There was no known way to do it, even with the most advanced techniques. Very interesting. He poured through every book, and there were no records of it ever happening. And this applied to all races in the world, including demonkind. It wasn't directly relevant to the research, but he did wonder if it could summon a soul. He, of course, filed away in the back of his head, hoping that one day he could ask an expert if a dead man could be summoned from another world. Yeah, he sees this and he's already going, well, maybe this has something to do with my original being brought here. He's sort of kind of curious about it. Now, I think at this point in his life, I don't think he really cares about his previous world anymore, but I would think he would still have a curiosity about how it happened. And yes, as we get further into this segment here, it's already starting to insinuate, it almost feels like the writer is right now trying to sort of reveal his hand. Already kind of revealed to the reader what actually happened here. Or it could be a misdirection, but I'll get more on that in a minute. Master Fitz, could you find out if there are any professors who know a lot about summoning magic for me? Huh? Well, yeah, sure. But they don't really teach it here, you know? Except for enchantment, I guess. I'm not sure that we'll find anyone that knows anything about the stuff that we're researching. Well, it can't hurt to poke around and see what you can find, at least. This is the interesting stuff. I think the more interesting stuff in this, I think it's just in this chapter, they talk a lot about enchantment. Later on, Rudius will start wondering what kind of classes he wants to take, and he was thinking about doing enchantment because, again, enchantment has sort of similarities to summoning, which, again, has similarities to teleportation. And I guess I can get into here, but they sort of talk a little bit about the idea that with enchantment, a lot of it has to do with creating magical implements. And so, yes, my crazy brain theory stuff starts going all over the place in the idea of teleportation, which is similar to summoning in certain ways. And summoning has, builds into the concepts of enchantment. And enchantment requires, creating magical implements. Magical implements are often things that Rudius kind of describes as being these kind of niceties of his previous life. Summoning things from concepts from another world is where my mind immediately goes to, and it could be completely off base, but that's where my mind kind of goes to, this idea of summoning concepts as magical implements into this world. I think it'll be more clear once we start to get into more details about what magical implements are. Again, the only real thing that we've kind of gone into was things like in the 7th volume, this idea that magical implements can be things like a lighter, this object that's pretty much like a lighter. And again, that's where my theory starts going crazy. I'll be really excited. Hopefully, he does get into enchantment classes and we can start learning about what exactly those magical implements exactly are. And again, if it is very similar concepts to our world and technologies, it sort of creates that bridge for my mind, this idea of possibly it being a concept of summoning things from other worlds. But anyways, that's me going crazy with crazy theories that probably have nothing to do with anything, but that's what I do here. It's what I do here. It's what I do. I do it all the time. Moving on though. Rudius right now had a small seed of uncertainty growing inside of himself. He was probably mistaken, but the displacement incident occurred 10 years after he was reincarnated into this world. Surely those two things weren't connected. Again, this is where I start to shift in my mindset of like, okay, it feels like this writer's showing his hand, but then to point out so obviously makes you feel like, are you misdirecting right now? Like, I don't know. This writer, if I remember correctly, has done some misdirection. So I'm already kind of really wondering, like, are you trying to misdirect me here? Because yes, what it's sort of insinuating here, where my mind immediately goes to is, okay, so was possibly Rudius being summoned into this world 10 years prior, was that a test bed? Was somebody testing the concepts of summoning somebody from another world, and Rudius was caught up in that? And then jump forward 10 years, they've amassed all this mana, and now it's time to actually do it. Rudius was a test, or at least involved, or got caught up in a test. And now over here with the displacement incident, that was where somebody was trying to do it. Like, whatever they had planned, whatever they were trying to summon, that's when they did it. And it caused the disaster in its wake. That's where I'm curious about. And again, going back to the concept of summoning being similar in a way to teleportation, you can assume that either when somebody was summoning something, they messed up the circle and it blew up as a teleportation disaster, or possibly when they summoned, just the release of that energy just caused a displacement. The summoning act happened and it was such a great amount of energy, it just scattered people with teleportation. Either way, it makes sense, testbed, occurrence, but at the same time, is this misdirection that we're doing here? Because again, it seems like Rudius is jumping on this. I was already kind of thinking about it back here, and then a couple paragraphs later, boom, he's going, I have uncertainty. I think there's something related here. Yeah, I think we're starting to really kind of sit in right now that this is a possibility. Anyway, though, with that anxiety in his mind, he left the dorms. On his way, he heard a shout. Get back here, you little... You think we're gonna let you cast a spell? He seen a boy running with a group of 6 guys chasing after him. The boy tried to cast at them with advanced tier, but they interrupted it. He tried beginner level, but it wasn't enough. They closed in on him, knocked him to the ground, and he curled into a ball. It was blatant case of schoolyard bullying, and it was painful to watch. He had to intervene. Hey, come on, give it a rest, guys. No need to pick on a little turtle. Who the hell are you supposed to be? Hey, that's Quagmire. Quagmire? Wait, you mean Rudius? They debate a little bit about Rudius and his training, linea and persona. Some of them mock the idea if it was even true. But a little after a while, they realized Rudius was a bad guy. He was bad news. Swallowing in unison and staring at him in awe. All right, kid, we'll let you go off the hook for today. Rudius spoke up. For today? Are we gonna have a repeat of this on our hands tomorrow? You plan on ganging up on him again? The 6 bullies grimaced in irritation. Look, Mr. Grey Rat, this doesn't really have anything to do with you, does it? I don't know what happened, but 6-on-1 isn't a fair fight, right? Okay, fine. We'll leave the kid alone. But just so you know, it's not like he's a victim here. With that, they left. Rudius really felt like it was hard to keep his cool when he was faced with 6 opponents, even if he trained himself on scenarios where he could be outnumbered. Still, it took effort to not turn tail and run. Again, I really equate this idea of that Rudius himself, even though he has stared death in the face, bully situations and insults still he struggles with. He's the biggest, toughest guy with this lock turned off on death, But at the same time, he still has emotions in himself that he is very fragile. He asked the boy if he was all right. It was Cliff. With his interactions in the past not being so great, he figured he would stand up and say, "I didn't ask for your help." Sure enough, "I didn't ask for your help," he sighed. "Sorry, I appreciate the help, Rudius." "Oh, you're welcome." Cliff bowed a little and then walked away. Rudius was a little shocked. The change of his attitude was weird. Cliff was hostile to Rudius, but Rudius never snapped back at him. Maybe he finally figured out that Rudius wasn't his enemy. Though he didn't know why Cliff hated him so much to begin with. Sorry, it was Edis. Edis is bad news. And every step of your life, Rudius, Edis is bad news. As much as I love her, Edis is bad news for you, Rudius. It's Cliff's fault, honestly. Don't yell at me, chat. The next day, Cliff asked Rudius to meet him behind the school building. He looked angry, and Rudius didn't know why. Rudius prepared himself with Eye of Foresight and building up mana in one of his hands in case he wanted to fight. Once Cliff checked the surroundings, he turned to Rudius, face flushed red. Rudius had misread the situation. Was this a love confession? It was tough being so sexy. So here's the thing, Rudius. Well, I fall in love with somebody. No kidding. Rudius was honestly heartbroken that he was going to have to turn this guy down. Sadly, his sword had a preference, and it wasn't going to be anything to change that, except for your rendezvous with Master Fitz. Anyways, Cliff pointed off to the side. That's her, right there. Off in the distance, there was someone looking out an open window. Her blonde hair fluttered in the breeze. "I saw you two talking in the afternoon. You know her, right? Would you be willing to introduce us?" Sure. It was a troublemaker. Subject of countless rumors, a predator who chewed through fellow students with all vigor of a succubus. In other words, Illinois Dragon Road. And that's the end of chapter 1. Cliff. Oh, Cliff. Now, I am shocked. And again, I made a lot of jokes about me thinking it was Princess Ariel and how that would possibly not really work out for Cliff. I mean, I'm willing to kind of see which direction it could possibly go. The idea of possibly Ariel using Cliff and his status in the Millis to possibly help her with taking down, her adversaries. But Ella Elise was like, what? What? But it does. I have to honestly say, chapter 2 honestly did surprise me in what they sort of did with it. But we'll get into that. Chapter 2, The Prodigy's Secret, Part 2. Rudius was in a pickle. He knew a lot about Elise, and that Cliff was smitten with her. He wanted to help Cliff out if he could, but thinking to himself, he's like, yeah, all of the achievements of Elise, the fact that she has this curse, the fact that she takes a daily dosage of males' bodily fluids, and the fact that she really can't settle with one specific man. It doesn't work with her curse. She apparently had given birth to multiple children, which was kind of interesting. Wasn't really sure about the whole situation. I just figured she had some sort of magic, or maybe it was part of the curse. Although she never told Rudius where they were now, she said that she did actually raise them herself until they were ready to be independent. Whatever that means. It sort of implies like the emphasis on the whole idea of them to be independent was like she raised them so that they can get busy and make money and make a living. I don't know. That's the only way I could see Ellen Elise actually raising a child. But I don't know. My thought process on Ellen Elise has shifted so much. And this idea of going from being like this crazy slut to her being actually, somebody just has a curse and she's just living with it. And again, this chapter really kind of changing my thoughts to almost a confused state with her. That said, it apparently was rare for her to get pregnant. But back to Cliff. Was Rudius okay with introducing her as a romantic partner? Honestly, Cliff believed that all of these rumors of what Ellen Elise was doing was people jealous of her, and they were trying to ruin her reputation. That's why he got in the fight with those 6 guys. They were talking about having their way with her and the fact that she was a slut, and he got angry and swung at them, and then he got his butt kicked. But he could just introduce them and just have Ellen Elise shatter the vision that he has of her. Honestly, Ellen Elise would probably thank him because she usually thanks him for bringing fresh meat to her. Apparently. Recently, she had gotten a taste for virgins. She loved teaching them and watching them grow. Which, yes, Rudius does acknowledge the appeal to it, because apparently back in his previous life, he had plenty of prawn games where they all had training themes. Still, Rudius was afraid that Cliff would believe that he would set him up. Like, if he brought him to Ellen Elise and then that was all shattered, Cliff would come back to him and say, why did you not tell me? Or you set me up or whatever. The opposite is the problem as well, as if he says, no, don't go to Ellen Elise, she's bad. Cliff might think that he's just a love rival and get angry at him. So, what does Master Fitz think? I'm going to keep using this because I took a little bit of time making it. Somebody was making comments like, you're going to keep using that. I'm like, yes, dang straight, I'm going to keep using it because it took me some time to make it. And it's funny. Yes, Rudius went to see Fitz. I was hoping I can get your advice on something, Master Fitz, if you don't mind. Okay, what kind of advice? Well, I guess it's relationship advice, actually. What? Fitz spun around and leaned over the table. There was something like a grimace on his face. Are you in love with somebody, Rudius? No, this is actually about a friend of mine. A friend? That's right. Okay. Go ahead then. Basically, this friend of mine fell deeply in love with somebody at first sight. And at first sight? And you're coming to me? Wait, don't tell me it's Princess Ariel? That won't work, Rudius. I mean, I know she's pretty, but... Yes, apparently people being after Ariel is a common thing, which is a surprise to nobody. Don't worry, Princess Ariel isn't involved. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Rudius went on to explain that there's this boy Cliff, and there's this woman that he's after that has certain issues. Fitz suggested that explain the issues would probably be the best thing if he could explain them, but Rudius was afraid that Cliff wouldn't believe him, that he was lying to him. He thought maybe he could have someone that Cliff trusts tell him the news. Maybe Ellenalyse himself would probably be the best. So you don't actually love this woman, Rudius? Nah, she's a friend, but I can't imagine ever dating her. Honestly, in Rudius' head, he's thinking to himself, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with the idea of sleeping with her if it was working. In the end, Fitz believed that Cliff might end up loving her despite her issue, warts and all. But Rudius believed that probably wouldn't work out. A guy fantasizing about marrying a pure, innocent angel wouldn't be a good match for Ellenalyse. Then Fitz spoke with a low murmur. I'm in love with someone too, so I can understand how he feels. From what I hear, most people couldn't even imagine dating the person I'm interested in either, but I still love them. Ugh. Yeah, I can see Fitz relating quite a bit to this whole subject. Again, Rudius being the assumed person that Fitz is talking about that everybody thinks is disgusting, but he wants to be with him. And then over here you have Ellenalyse that everybody feels like she's undateable. She's just running around sleeping with everybody. But then Cliff could want to. Rudius thought to himself, Fitz in love with someone? Princess Ariel seemed to be the obvious possibility, especially when Rudius considers that how he reacted the moment he brought this topic up. Immediately went to Princess Ariel. I was like, Rudius, stop. Again, if it goes back to my other theory, and this is actually a split here, and this has always been Fitz, I guess technically it could be Princess Ariel, but again, that's not where I'm going here. It's Sylphie. It's gotta be Sylphie. It's kind of tough to just sit there and watch them when you can't tell them how you feel. So, I think you ought to introduce them. Give him a chance to get off his chest, at least. That might lead to all sorts of troubles down the road. Well, what can you do? Once you get them in a room together, the rest is up to them. It was true. Rudius could do this and then just wipe his hands of it. Let them handle it. As Rudius thanks Fitz and leaves, he could see Fitz at the corner of his eye, slumping face first on the table. Probably because he was embarrassed giving advice like an old sage at his age. Sure, Rudius. That's exactly why Fitz is slumped over. Basically just confessed everything in front of you. I feel bad for Fitz. The next day, Rudius told Cliff that he would introduce him to her. But he wanted to make something very, very clear. Being that he had ventured with Ellenalyse for a long time, he knew more about her than anybody here. Yet he didn't want to tell him what he thought of her. He felt it was best that he just meet her and talk to her. But he didn't want Cliff to think that he was misleading him. Cliff claimed that yes, he's a faithful member of the Millis Church. They show respect to matchmakers. With that, they found Ellenalyse in an empty classroom, leaning with her elbows on the windowsill. Though Rudius notes that there was nobody naked behind her right now. Rudius! My mind immediately goes to that whole scene. Rudius! She was probably just waiting there for nightfall so that she can go to the bars. Oh, hello there, Rudius. Did you actually come to see me for once? Oh, who's this nice young man with you? She's like, ooh, who's this nice young man with you? She's so thirsty. Ellenalyse, this is Cliff Grimoire. He's a special student in the second year here. Indeed. My name is Cliff, madam. It is a pleasure to meet you. Goodness, what a polite young man. I'm Ellenalyse Dragonroad. If you don't mind me asking, is there something I can do for you? He wanted me to introduce you to him, actually. That's why we're here. This is true. Miss Ellenalyse, I've seen your face on several occasions, and your beauty always leaves me captivated. I would very much appreciate the chance to become better acquainted with you. Silence settled in the room. Then Elise grabbed Rudius by the arm and pulled him off the side. All right, Rudius, how much do you want? Rudius thought to himself, is she giving payment for bringing her a boy toy? I don't want any money. What is this then? What do you want? Nothing. He just fell in love with you, that's all. Oh, please, Rudius. You know what I'm like. Why would you bring a naive little choir boy like that to meet me? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Rudius was shocked that she is familiar with the concept of shame. I just love this little thing. It's just a whisper off the side, and she's like, Rudius, how? You should be ashamed. And he's sitting there going, girl, what? What? In the end, Elise wasn't able to have an exclusive relationship. Despite her fears of him resenting Rudius for it, he told her it was fine. Just go turn him down. But Rudius requested that she be truthful about why, to not use him as an excuse. After Rudius excused himself, he felt bad for Cliff. We then cut to a week later, Rudius entering a classroom, Cliff sitting at his desk, and Elise sitting on his lap. Well, that escalated. Cliff once again thanks Rudius. Apparently the two were now dating. What? The next up-and-coming pope is literally dating Elise, who has a curse that requires her to sleep with men. One of these things and not like the other. Apparently after Rudius left, Cliff proposed something to Elise, melting her heart. I'll lift your curse no matter what, so please, marry me. Then, later that night, at the inn, they got busy. The boasting Elise gave was embarrassing Cliff. Apparently, Elise claimed that she would restrain herself as much as possible, but Cliff understood that she couldn't avoid it. Again, what Fitz said, possibly Cliff would accept her, warts and all. Whatever issue she has, he's accepted. You have this problem. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna fix it for you. And that was enough to capture her. Now again, it hasn't really given me any indication that's otherwise. She has accepted the fact that he is doing this for her is possibly proof that she has been suffering. Like, she would not want this. Like, there's a possibility she's not okay with. She says she'd still be sleeping with people. She can still do that without the curse. The fact the curse forces her to do it, and the fact that she gets in the state that she gets in when she doesn't get it. In the end, all Cliff wanted was her heart. It seemed in the end, despite Elise being honest about her curse and the rumors being true, Cliff proposed to her and somehow won over her heart. Cliff was seriously a mystery to Rudius. Was that all that took to capture Elise's heart, he thought? Technically, the curse had afflicted Elise for many, many years. There was no telling if Cliff could even lift it, but he promised to do his best to make it happen. And that probably meant a lot to her, even if she enjoyed her nightly escapades. It must mean that the curse has caused her plenty of sadness and pain. Again, in the end, even if you argue the idea that she likes it, even if she claims that she likes it, maybe she wants to settle down with a person. Maybe she wants marriage. Maybe she wants kids and a normal family. Right now, she's forced to keep moving, find the next guy, find the next guy, find the next guy. She's doing all this stuff, but she has all these rest stops that she has to take constantly. Like, it's this pain that she always has. Maybe it was more than that, though. Maybe he showed her real bravery and passion. As much as I give issue with Cliff and his attitude and his boisterous nature, the fact that he's full of himself, at least I can give him credit for at least being honest for what he sees in front of him. Cliff wasn't lying when he said he was so great. He was great. Cliff wasn't lying when he said that his professors were useless. His professors couldn't teach him anything. He doesn't lie. And maybe that honesty is all that Elise wanted. Yeah, she's probably heard plenty of guys say that they would want to marry her, say that they would fix her, say that they would do anything for her. But Cliff was possibly the first person that she's seen that was brutally honest and had passion in his eyes. Linnea spoke up. Hey, boss, I have a great idea. What is it, Linnea? We should start dating too, nya? Let's give those little dorks a taste of their own medicine. I might be willing to give it a shot. Tell me something, though. If I took you up on that, would you help me find a cure for my impotence? Huh? Everyone besides Elise shouted. Boss, did you, overhear us or something? What are you talking about? Well, at lunch, me and Priscilla were talking about the way that you tied us up and stripped us down, but didn't even mate with us. Yeah, we were saying that your sausage didn't even work right. Rudius looked over to Priscilla, who averted her eyes. I want to see this anime, the air flap. She's like, looks away. Sorry. We weren't making fun of you or anything, boss. It's just, you didn't smell that interested when you were touching us, you know? We figured there might be something wrong. Suddenly, everybody was looking at Rudius with pity. We're gonna spray it around, boss. Honest. Lenny's just the one who made the sausage joke. She's a moron sometimes. Shut up, Priscilla. You said he was a harmless wimp who doesn't even have the guts to make a move on us. That was a compliment, stupid. It's fine, really. It's not like I'm trying to keep it a secret or anything. Yeah, who cares about if you're impotent, boss? It's not like we're gonna think any less of you, yeah? Right, you might be impotent, but you're still our boss. There's no need to let this get to you, master. We have our figurines. Let us live for their sake. Don't worry, master. We have figures. I have a statue back at my room you can coddle. Zenova. And of course, Julie speaks up. Master, what does impotent mean? Well, I suppose that means you can't perform in the role expected of a man. But it's hardly important. It has no relevance to creating figurines. That's all he cares about. He figures Zenova's trying to cheer him up. He chose his words very carefully. And here I thought you were a total pervert, boss. I guess you're just searching for a cure for your condition, huh? Brings a tear to my eye, it does, nya? I'll help you any way I can, boss. As long as you give me some meat first. The jokes that come from it every time you say things like that, Persona. Stop saying things like that, Persona. I don't touch it, though. I never touch the joke, but it's there. But she's always asking for meat. Anyways, then Cliff spoke up. For what it's worth, Rudius, I learned how to hear confessions as a part of my training. They say that I don't have much talent for that area, but maybe I can talk things through with you. Let me know if you ever need someone to lend an ear, alright? While Lindy and Priscilla seemed to be forcing faces of sympathy, it wasn't doing much for Rudius. But Cliff, on the other hand, sounded warm and genuine. Too bad he was a guy, but he was kind of understood how Annalise felt that day. I like here that despite the fact that he has pretty much Lenny and Priscilla seeing him as like the pack leader, over here, somebody that he just finally kind of helped him with something, he gained some sort of favor. Cliff, somebody that he was bashing heads with before, was the most genuine. Cliff, under all that issues he had first off, is a genuinely good person. Somebody that wanted to hear him out, wanted to help him out. And yes, a lot of that has to do with the fact that he just met the person that he feels he's going to marry because of Rudius. He's obviously going to want to return the favor somehow, but I think Cliff, if anybody, would probably be the best person to ask that. Despite his own flaws in his past, Cliff is still technically a person of the faith, a man of the cloth. You'd think that you would have some sort of way of helping him out, or at least, again, giving him an ear. Sometimes all it takes is having somebody that will listen to you. Sometimes the best remedy is an ear. Anyhow, at the same time, everyone was now aware of Rudius' condition, but maybe this was required to make his first real step. He honestly just wanted to get to fixing it and swap some spit like somebody else was doing in the room. So, that's chapter 2. Cliff officially joining the harem. That's pretty much the chapter right there. Super crazy though. Really crazy chapter. Again, was not expecting that conclusion. And like I said, over the next couple chapters, it really honestly doesn't show me any signs that Annalise isn't actually going with Cliff. Like, she has devoted herself to him. I really hope for some time later we get that full conversation, but it really does feel like all they're really stating here is the fact that he was passionate. He said he'd fix the curse and that he wanted to devote himself to her. That's all she needed. And she fell in love with him. And again, she's still stuck having to deal with all this other stuff, deal with the curse. But most of the time she's spending with him. That's why he's so tired every day now, apparently, because she's keeping him up all night. Really crazy. That's the last couple I ever thought I'd ever see. We'll see how long it lasts. But that's when we get into Side Story Sylphiette Part 3. It's a very short chapter as usual. Like, these Sylphiette side stories are becoming so short now, it's literally like you sneeze and it's done. But like I said, I never expect anything from these chapters anymore. As Sylphie followed the princess, she overheard somebody speaking. Really, Cliff, you've got to lighten up a little bit. Look, I understand the nature of your curse, and I do enjoy, being intimate with you. But we came here to study, remember? If we spent every day in bed, we'll end up totally depraved. I know. First we study, and then... Obviously, it was Cliff and Annalise. Rumor were spreading that they were dating. An odd couple. People were saying that she was only playing with him. But watching them, it seemed as if the feelings was mutual between the two of them. I can't say I expected to see those two fall in love with each other. Cliff always seemed like such an obstinate, serious person. He refused every attempt we made to win him over. It's hard to believe he ended up with an elf with such an infamous reputation. The princess turned her gaze over to Rudius. He really is impressive, isn't he? Rudius at the time was speaking to the couple. Annalise smiling warmly back at him. Cliff with a look of respect in his eyes for Rudius. A huge shift to how Cliff looked at Rudius before. Still, Sylphie was wondering if Rudius was getting with any girls. Luke said that noticed gray rats were born as womanizers. But Sylphie hadn't seen Rudius flirting with anyone, or heard of him dating anybody. Maybe he was restraining himself. Just then, Rudius turned and glanced at Sylphie. He waved with a little smile on his face. It reminded her of the boy she'd known years before. She felt like her heart skipped a beat, but he wasn't waving at her. He was waving at Fitz. He got to know Fitz over the last few months, asking him for all sorts of advice, and Fitz had gradually earned his trust and friendship in return. He wasn't waving at Sylphie. He didn't even know she was there. With that, she followed Princess down the hall. Ouch. Ouch. Like, I just figured she was staring at Rudius, and he kind of just turned like, oh, this girl's looking at me, might as well wave at them. Nope. Fitz was right behind her. Oh, ouch. Before I forget, I did find it interesting that Ariel is pointing out here that she has been trying to make contact with Cliff. Again, this is my struggle right now because we keep seeing two different perspectives. And it's always from Sylphie's perspective over here, but it's Sylphie with Ariel, and they're talking about making contact with these people they brought in. Again, there's all these special people that they brought into the school, and people of the first years that they were trying to make contact with to bring them into Ariel's fold. And even from the perspective of them talking about trying to make contact with Rudius, we never see that contact. We're just seeing Rudius and Cliff and all them doing their school routine. And then over here, we've seen that Ariel's still doing her thing, and Sylphie's mentioned the idea they're making contact. We never see that contact. But yes, it's insinuating that they've been trying to contact Cliff, and he's been ignoring it. Don't know what the extent of that is. Is Cliff like, I don't care what you guys are doing, or he just doesn't care to get... I would assume it's Cliff being contacted and him going, I don't care, I gotta study. Like, I'm here to study, I'm here to get better. Again, after what happened with Lenny and Priscilla, he focused himself on his studies. And maybe he just doesn't want to deal with anybody. Like, they're trying to contact him, come over here and hang out with us over here. No, I don't want to. That's probably more the case there. But yes, that obviously in this chapter is really the heartbreak is, again, we're finally seeing that aspect of, yes, he's looking over at her and he's not even seeing her. And again, my whole point there is that, yes, she's saying he's looking at Fitz. He's waving at Fitz. Fitz has gotten to know him over the last few years. And again, I'm still holding in my mind that he's waving at Fitz. But the one that got to know, the one that earned his trust and made friends with Rudius is Sylphie, disguising herself as Fitz, hanging out with Rudius. So right here, she's saying, he's waving at me. He's waving at the me that is Fitz. And that's the struggle she's having. I've built a friendship with him. I've gained his trust. But he's waving at Fitz because I was Fitz at the time. And that's the heartbreaking thing. It's like, because you're disguising yourself, you're not building that bond with him that you want. Girl, walk over there. Just Ariel, I'll be right back. Ariel's like, oh, it's Rudius. Okay, go. You know, Ariel will be like, go. Anyways, let's do it. Let's get into chapter 3. I don't know if I can get chapter 4 in, but we'll at least start chapter 3. Chapter 3, The Impervious Fiance, Part 1. I freaking love Badigadi. Half a year has passed since Rudius has enrolled in the Renoa University of Magic. It was autumn, harvest season. There was a few festivals held across the towns and cities. For beast folk, this was mating season. Things about to get crazy. A lengthy culture event that came with the complicated rules and rituals. Currently, beast folk made up of 5% of the student body, which was roughly about 500 people. But it gets worse. Like, I seen 500, I'm like, that's a big number. It's not really huge compared to the total student body. But then they start getting into later the fact that there's people literally coming outside of the university. So it's not just the 5%. All around, the beast folk were fighting one-on-one in duels, pitting male against female. Several months after their duel, they would be glued to each other, eventually getting married. The one that won the duel took the role as the boss in the new pack they were forming. It seemed to be an old tradition, some respected more than others. Seems some beast folk actually travel there from great distant lands to challenge students for one of these romantic duels, meaning outsiders. While the administration would normally prevent that sort of thing, this was a delicate subject due to the importance in the beast folk culture. Anyways, That brings us to Linnea and Priscilla. They were basically unobtainable for average beast folk, being the strongest beast folk in the school and princesses. They flat out denied everyone, mainly due to their status being the fact that whoever was chosen would be in line for leadership. So this is not something they could just do. They would have to talk to their family first. Still, they were very popular and many would try sneak attacks. As things got worse, they chose to stay in their rooms. Rudius thought of them woofing and meowing passionately in their rooms because they're in heat, and it excited him. Apparently, this season also meant an increase of sexual assault as well, folks taking advantage of the chaos that the beast folk were creating. For this reason, there was an increase of guards on the campus. For those unsure of their defensive capabilities, they were told to travel in groups. Fitz even warned Rudius to turn down any girls' challenges under false pretense. I wonder why you would tell him that, Fitz. Fitz doesn't want him shacking up with somebody through a duel. This just sounds so stupidly chaotic. Like this school, this university, and there's like this season where suddenly it's just an all-out brawl happening. People getting married and getting all over each other. Like, it makes sense, the idea of beasts and being in heat and all that kind of stuff. Mating season, it's just an instinct they can't really get around. Rudius honestly would normally take this opportunity to build a harem, but that would basically be rubbing salt on his wound. We cut to Zenoba confronting Rudius about creating a new figurine. He had been actually working for a while on an Edis figurine, figuring that it would be some sort of therapy exercise, but he ended up blubbering and he quit halfway through it. He asked Zenoba if he had any ideas of what to create, and the both of them kind of came up with just making a red worm. When Julie inquired, Rudius told her the story of him killing a red worm. Her expression lit up. At this point, life wasn't so bad. While not in peak condition, he had settled into a routine. His beginner to level divine magic and barrier magic classes were wrapping up soon. He was deciding on what he was going to go into next. Perhaps intermediate detoxification or advanced healing. Though he had gotten fine with the current skill that he had in both of those. Maybe enchantment, which he never dabbled in before. Technically, a form of summoning magic which could aid in his research. He heard that it involved creating various magical implements that he wasn't sure how it was tied in with summoning. Again, this is where I was getting my crazy theories building up, and the idea of Rudius, go do that class. I want to know. I'm curious about how this enchantment has to do with summoning and creates various magical implements. What's the connection there? Obviously, Rudius didn't have to take any classes. He could just devote himself to his research, which he admits has kind of hit a dead end at this point. Then, one day, things stopped being peaceful. He found himself on the receiving end of a matrimonial duel. Before him, a beautiful tan-skinned girl. Silky dark blue hair, tied in a ponytail. 17 or 18, strong, dignified face. Modest bust, impressive muscles. On her hip, a curved sword, commonly used in the sword god style. She was staring his direction. Actually, she was staring at the hairy beast man that was in front of Rudius. The girl was just walking by. I loved how he wrote this part where he's got that indication of like, he's involved with a duel. Somebody wants to duel him. This girl's standing there. She's kind of cute looking, but no, Rudius was just staring at her, and she's staring at this dude that actually challenged him to a duel. Good one, Refugin. A matrimonial duel? Like one of those where you get married later? Indeed. Rudius misread the situation. His name was Brooke Aldolia. He was dueling Rudius for Priscilla's hand in marriage. And apparently Priscilla replied to his letter saying that Rudius was the leader of her pack. Damn. Also, apparently this guy was told by Gius how Rudius was a great warrior. And yes, as the leader of the pack, he was obligated to fight this guy. Defeating Rudius, the boss of the pack, would allow him to claim Priscilla as a prize, apparently. The man didn't even hesitate. He charged at Rudius. Rudius used Quagmire, Stone Cannon, knocked him out. It was anticlimactic, yes, but he had no reason to let this guy win. Priscilla wasn't interested in marriage, though it felt like Linnea and Priscilla were just dumping their situation on Rudius. Still, it wasn't a big deal to Rudius, he thought, but then that changed. Over the next few minutes, he was attacked 5 different times on his way to the library. It felt like half the Doldia tribe was after him. While they may never have met Linnea and Priscilla, they were after leadership, probably. Oddly enough, Rudius kind of noted that it seemed like they were taking turns, like they had an order for who was going to come after him, because one of them yelled out that somebody was cutting in line. Thankfully, they didn't pursue him into the library. Maybe they had a unspoken rule or a traditions or like their own rules, or possibly the administration letting them in there told them, okay, but don't do this. At some point, Fitz entered. There was apparently quite a scene outside. After Rudius explained the situation, Fitz frowned sourly. That makes no sense at all. You're not the leader of the Dolia tribe or anything. Who cares if you beat them in a fight once? Doesn't mean you have any right to hand them out as prizes to random strangers. You're right, but how do I convince these people out there? What does Master Fitz think segment right here, as usual? Rudius is struggling. He's stuck in a library. He doesn't know what to do with it. What does Master Fitz think? It's a secret. You have every right to just ignore them, but it might just be easier just to beat them in a fight, and then they'll probably give up and just go home. So at the end of the day, I should just duel them all. That's probably for the best. Easier said than done. Rudius wasn't sure how many was out there waiting for him, and we had no choice. In the fear of them barging in the library and making a mess. It's not just men, actually. I did see one girl out there too. Seriously? Was she cute? Rudius, please don't tell me you're gonna go accept the duel. Fitz glared. No, of course not. I'm just curious, that's all. Oh, you're curious, huh? Fitz did give him a warning to not duel any girls. Maybe because Luke got into some sort of trouble in the past. Sure, Rudius. Once again, sure, Rudius. Rudius wondered why the student council didn't do anything. I mean, if this happened every single year. But apparently they didn't want to ban it, otherwise it could probably cause more problems. Again, this is a tradition that they don't want to get involved with. They already had their hands full this time of year. It was more efficient for them to sort of focus on those that were having difficulty protecting themselves. Rudius then asked Fitz to help him, but he dismissed it, saying that Rudius could handle it. Rudius noticed that Fitz's voice wasn't very friendly today. Had he upset him? Rudius at this point thought it maybe finally Fitz was upset because of him defeating him for the exam. And maybe Rudius running away was ruining Fitz's reputation. This is that whole mentality that Japan especially has, and this idea that, like, if a team defeats another team, they don't get angry at them. They say, don't lose to the next team, otherwise it makes us look like we would lose to them. It's this idea that once you defeat somebody, you have to sort of hold their honor by continuing to be great at whatever you're doing. But yes, Rudius running away, maybe people were saying that he lost to a coward now, so he had to make it right. He had to stop running away. All right then, for the sake of your good name, Master Fitz, I'll go slaughter them all. What? Don't kill them, Rudius. I'm just joking, sorry. He resigned himself to his fate. These duels were important, and if someone was strong in the crowd, he could die, so Rudius couldn't get careless. As he left the library, he was greeted by a scene of dozens of bodies on the ground, limp and motionless. It was a battlefield. Male beast folk of different races, and some in uniforms. Oh, and a girl too. The swordsman girl from earlier. I wonder if she actually came there to duel him after she seen him defeat that other guy. She was in love with him all along, he thought. Suddenly, Rudius heard a booming laughter. Wahaha. Badigadi's here. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see him. A man stood tall with one of his foes in his hand. I give you credit for challenging me, my young friends. It was truly a bad decision on your part. Yes, but a brave one. The students of this University of Magic clearly have some guts. Fitz and Rudius stood in astonishment. These men told me that I had to beat them if I didn't want to wait my turn. And so I did. And now you've come out to meet me right on schedule. Excellent. I like a man who keeps his promises. He was obviously a demon. Obsidian black skin, 6 arms. The top set were folded. The middle were pointing at them. Not finger guns. Not finger guns. The bottom resting at his hips. Hair down to his waist was purple. I am the immortal demon king Badigadi. I see you have eye of foresight, boy. You must be Rudius Greyrat. I've heard of you from my fiancée, the demon empress Kishirika. I challenge you to a duel. Rudius wondered if he was one of those demon kings that kidnapped young women from villages. Maybe if he offered up 2 slightly furry young maidens as sacrifice, he'd let him off the hook. And that's chapter 3. I think I could do chapter 4. We'll see. I might just record it. If it gets too long, I'll just put it another thing. But Badigadi's finally here, and this chapter 4 is amazing. Like, I absolutely love chapter 4. It's got so much to talk about. It's Badigadi, so that's my concern of it being able to fit. But we'll see. You'll be seeing this part if I'm actually going to go into it. Chapter 4: The Impervious Fiancé Part 2. The kingdom was in a panic. Its word spread quickly across that the Demon King appearance was in the university. Following the Laplace War, the surviving Demon Kings never left the Demon Continent. That's the key thing here. They were peaceful, cautious, and largely disinterested in conflict. Still, they were powerful enough to take control of areas on the terrifying Demon Continent. One invading humanity's territory could cause major damage. For this reason, Renoa, Nerdis, and Basharant dispatched every available knight quickly. They also called upon the Adventurers Guild, but most available hands would take time to arrive. As a stopgap, small units of Magic Nation's soldiers already in Sharia joined local adventurers and members of the Magic Guild to surround the campus. The Demon King, before Rudius, was Badigadi the Immortal, one of the ancient kings that lived since before the Laplace War. Because of his peaceful nature, little was known of his capabilities in combat. Some believed he fought against Laplace, which would mean that even a demon god failed to destroy him. That's a big thing there. We cut to Rudius, who's at the center of the university's advanced magical training grounds, facing the Demon King Badigadi. Rudius honestly freaked out a little bit. Can you blame him? Yes, Rudius was getting cocky, but he felt like the universe was punishing him for that. With a crowd of students and professors gathering, Rudius contemplating what they would think if he would just run away. He didn't care honestly about that, but then a man in a toupee jogged out to meet him and asked him to buy time while they focused on gathering forces. At the current moment, they were paused, like Badigadi had agreed to wait, while Fitz goes and acquires Rudius's Aqua Hartia. I hurried over here because I know you humans are always in a rush. But you seem to be quite composed, boy. I expect no less than someone who intrigued my fiancé. Your fiancé? By which you mean Empress Kishirika, yes? Indeed. You know, your majesty, I only had one brief conversation with the Empress, although she did grant me this demon eye. Well, she always talking about how impressive you are, boy. It's been ages since I heard her speak of anyone with such excitement in her voice. I'm a very tolerable man, of course, but I'll admit, I was a bit jealous. Oh gosh, Kishirika, he set him up bad. Rudius thought to himself, I never did anything to her. I mean, she turned him down. There's nothing special about me, I assure you. I'm just a sad, pitiful mouse of a man. I can't imagine why a demon king like yourself would be jealous of me. The demon empress must have been exaggerating or something. Wahaha! Don't be modest, boy. I've heard all about your astonishing mana pool. Yes, Rudius did acknowledge. She said something about his mana pool. Well, yes, I do seem to have a bit more mana than most people. Ha ha ha, a bit more. Yes, indeed. At this point, Badigadi plopped on the ground. Sit down, boy. It seems you don't understand what it means to be called astonishing by a demon empress, Kishirishu. Well, I guess I don't know. She told me you had an amazing amount of mana. More than Laplace. You're the first person she's ever said that about. Rudius thought to himself, more than a demon god? The demon god Laplace had one of the biggest total mana pools in recorded history. In other words, yours is one of the largest ever. Oh, come on, that can't be right. Rudius admitted that this actually made his heart jump in excitement. Like, wow, I have something that's like OP about myself. Which, yes, this whole thing is absolutely crazy. The idea that he's far more than Laplace himself. It's crazy to think about. But again, it goes back to the whole idea of what is this? And he's going to ask about that in his own mind later. What caused this? I don't know the truth of it myself. Kishirika can be sloppy at times. There is a chance she misjudged you. Badigadi's face turned sour. Rudius thought to himself, did Kishirika do something? Like, Kishirika does seem to be the type to make mistakes. Maybe she made some really costly mistake at some point. Maybe it's whatever led to her being killed. It possibly had something to do with the whole war itself, I would assume, but maybe we'll get to that later on. Well, yeah, I admit that I made an effort to increase my mana pool over the years. I don't know about having more than anyone else in history, though. Wouldn't that mean that anyone could break a record if they train themselves enough like I did? Here's the key thing here. No, such a thing would normally be impossible. Rudius then at this point starts to click. Wait, maybe this is because I'm a reincarnate. Maybe the man god cheated with him somehow. Like maybe he did something to Rudius during that whole ordeal that caused him to be able to break past that typical mana barrier. Now it's all starting to click that something is indeed special about Rudius. I think this is sort of the first time that we've ever had an indication of that. Yes, technically him having knowledge of the previous world allowed him to more easily understand incantationalists, but now we're starting to realize that you can teach anybody incantationalist. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that he has knowledge of it. Again, he assumed it was because he had knowledge of it, but when he finally started trying other things out, he was already too old. And so maybe it has nothing to do with the fact that he had that previous knowledge. Maybe it all has to do with the time that he did it. Again, he keeps noting the fact that he's never really been special. But now he's finally seeing, I do have something special about myself. There's one thing I'd like to ask you, Your Majesty, if you don't mind.
What is it? Feel free to pose any inquiry.
Just to be clear, I'm not a lackey of the person I'm about to name. Look how he's very clear about this. I don't care about this person. I'm not his friend. I'm not his ally. Don't kill me if I tell you this name. Like he learned from Orsted. Though he did later on undoes that in a way. So I appreciate if you don't suddenly attack me.
I already agreed to wait, boy. A demon king never breaks his promises.
Does the name Man God mean anything to you? I can just imagine him going, does the name Man God mean anything to you? Like dodging instinctively.
Where'd you hear that name, boy?
He's someone that appears in my dreams sometimes.
I see. Your dreams, eh?
Do you know something about him, Your Majesty?
Can't say I do. I think I've heard the name before, but I can't recall where. It's been a few centuries since anyone spoke of him to me, at the very least.
Is that so? Well, thank you anyways.
Not a problem. If I remember, I'll be sure to let you know. Bwahahaha.
I'd appreciate that.
You're so damn dull, boy. Laugh with me for once. Bwahahaha.
Rias realized this guy really seems to enjoy life. Laughing at things that weren't really humorous. Rias does acknowledge that he made a connection with Bajerd when they laughed. It was the most common language, laughter. Bwahahaha.
Good. That's the way, boy. It's like Kishirika always says, laugh first, think later.
Sure. I can see it. I mean, I can sort of agree with that. It's a good thing to laugh sometimes. Sometimes even when you're facing issues, it's always sometimes good to laugh.
Come to think of it, she was laughing the last time she died. Wasn't she?
Freaking love Badigadi. Oh, Kishirika. I'm sort of starting to miss her too. Suddenly the crowd got rowdy. It was Fitz, trying to get to Rudius with his staff. Apparently they were hoping to stall, bringing him the staff so the duel wouldn't start, but Fitz was afraid the duel would start without his staff. So thankfully Zenoba showed up and started throwing people around. At that point, Fitz rushed over towards Rudius with his staff. He was so fast, which he points out was because of his magical boots. No kidding. Are those sunglasses magical too? Oh, these? Yeah, they're... wait. Sorry. That's a secret. People get PTSD by hearing the phrase, and I'm trigger warning here. People get really upset when they see Turning Point after reading Mushoku Tensei. My trigger is, that's a secret. That's a secret. I freaking hate that phrase so much. If I ever hear that's a secret later on, I'm going to be... Fitz laughed, which bugged Rudius. Why was he so dang cute when he laughed? Haha, anyways, here you go. Good luck, Rudius. Just don't push yourself, okay? If you realize that you can't win, just apologize and run for it. You're up against a Demon King here. No one's going to blame you. Your life is more important than your pride. At this point, Rudius pulled the cloth from the staff, revealing his Aqua Hartia. Fitz drew in a sharp breath. Rudius had a mischievous thought pop in his head. Fitz, take a look at the magic stone on my staff. What do you think? It's really big. Something downstairs twitched. So stupid. Everything about this last 2 volumes is stupid. So stupid. So stupid. Fitz reluctantly trotted off to the crowd, and Rudius kind of whined inside of his own mind about how he wanted backup. Why is everybody leaving me? At this point, Badigadi wanted to start. Rudius wanted to chat more though. But Badigadi said that we'll have time later, which kind of reassured Rudius that he wasn't out to kill Rudius, but he couldn't really trust it. At this point, Rudius activated his Eye of Foresight, but it showed him nothing. He wasn't moving.
What's got you looking astonished, boy? Ah, I see. You already tried to use your demon eye. Sorry, but those things won't work on me.
Your Majesty.
Body's fine. I permit those that laugh with me when I ask them to call me by name.
King Body then, I have a request to make.
What sort of proposal?
I'd ask that you spare my life, even if I lose the duel.
Bwahaha. begging for your life before we've even started. You never cease to amuse me.
Well, a life is tragic thing to waste, don't you think?
Ah, yes. You humans die so quickly as it is. I hear many of you feel that way. But why are you so sure you'll lose? One would think such a massive mana pool would lend a man some confidence.
Well, I was nearly killed by someone called the Dragon God not too long ago. Probably has something to do with it. Suddenly, Badigadi's laughter came to an end. Here's where you're dropping names that... Ryu's gotta stop. Ryu's gotta stop dropping names.
The Dragon God? You mean Orsted? You fought him and lived?
By the skin of my teeth. If he hadn't spared me on a whim, I wouldn't be standing here today. Badigadi's look turned to serious. Ryu's thought to himself that he'd carelessly brought up the name Orsted.
Tell me, boy, were you able to wound the Dragon God in that fight, even slightly?
Yeah, I guess I managed to tear the skin off of the palm of his hand. That's it, though. He stared fiercely, intimidating. Rudius wanted him to start laughing again. He thought to himself, wahaha. Again, this segment, things are starting to click. He didn't care about the name Man God. He didn't really recognize it. He recognized Man God, but he's like, I guess, but it must not have been here recently because I don't have any memories of talking about it. So it's sort of like Badigadi's acknowledging he's heard Man God, but he doesn't even remember what he talked about the Man God. Here, Orsted, suddenly this guy that laughs all the time, he suddenly turned really serious. Like, wait, Orsted? Boy, did you harm him? He wants to know if Rudius has drawn blood on him. It makes me believe that Badigadi or somebody that Badigadi knows, he's involved with somebody or talked to somebody, wants to take down Orsted. And so he wanted to know, Rudius, did you draw blood? Were you able to harm him? That's what he wants to know right now. Again, it's sort of indicating Badigadi is now much more interested in Rudius. I don't think he's going to kill you, Rudius, because I think he needs you. It's bringing up some big question marks here, and I'm very curious where this is going.
In that case, I'd like to make a request of my own. You get one shot. Hit me with your very strongest magic. I'll give you one chance, no more. Use that spell you used to hurt the Dragon God, perhaps. Should it manage to pierce my battle aura and do me harm, then you win. If I'm undamaged, then I win. How does that strike you?
Sure, but isn't that a little one-sided?
One-sided, you say? True enough. Very well then. If you can't scathe me with your magic, then I'll hit you with a counterattack. It will be a single blow, no more.
Reason this point's like, crap. Why did I even say anything? I was gonna get away with being able to do one hit on him and that was it. But no, because I had to speak up, I pretty much allowed him to hit me once. At this point, Rudius gathered as much magical power as possible. Stone Cannon, one far harder than the one he fired at Orsted. Obviously, he had plenty of time to build it up. The guy was just standing there waiting. With Orsted, he did it on a whim. Here, he has time to build it up. He focused on toughness, resilience, shape of a spindle, tapering to a fine point, rapid rotation, velocity at maximum. It was overkill to most monsters, but this was a Demon King.
Okay, here goes. Excellent. Have at me.
Rudius fired off the spell. It slammed into Badigadi with an enormous bang. His entire upper body blown apart. Arms disintegrated instantly. Lower half of him soared dozens of meters back. He expected to bounce off of him with a twang. He was shocked. Slowly and fearfully, he walked towards his body. His remaining body wasn't even bleeding for some reason. Huh? Wait, really? This isn't happening. Is he dead? When Rudius turned around, the crowd was staring in silence. I killed him? That can't be right. He told me to give him his best shot. He wasn't even worried. What the hell? Rudius had to calm down. Slowly, he turned back.
Wahaha, I'm revived.
Rudius nearly fired off another stone cannon. He stood there, alive again. Half as big as he was before. For some reason, his head was about the same size, but he was about the height of Rudius. It was kind of odd. Oh, you're alive. Rudius was relieved that he didn't kill someone that he wasn't intending to.
Wahaha, I thought I was done for, boy. In any case, now it all makes sense. It was wise of you to prevent a real battle. Had we fought in earnest, this whole area would be reduced to a barren wasteland.
I like that Badigadi here assumes that Rudius would be like this powerful mage, that they would be going at it and there'd be explosions and it would be a long fight. Again, per usual, Rudius later on is going to be like, no, if this was a real fight, he would have just decked me and killed me. It would have probably been over in an instant. All Badigadi sees right now is that Rudius had this powerful attack. He doesn't know how Rudeus is in an actual fight. Over time, his arms slowly came back to his body, and his body like slowly grew larger.
You certainly sent me flying quite a distance, boy. Looks like it'll take me some time before I get back to my old self again. You win this one, Rudeus. Feel free to call yourself a hero.
I don't think I will, but thanks anyways.
At least give the crowd a victory cry then. Wahaha.
At this point, he grabs Rudeus' hand, lifts it up like a referee announcing a winner. Rudeus went, I won. No one made a sound. Like the crowd's not even picking up on it.
They're not much fun, are they? Well, all right then. Time for you to take my punch.
What? Wait, that wasn't the deal. Rudeus took 3 fists at once, right in the face, knocking him unconscious as he thought, you big liar. Oh, man. I have a feeling that Badigadi just wanted to see what he would take. Like, I'm gonna hit this boy so bad. He just wanted to give him a show or something, just kind of wrap things up. Afterward, apparently, Badigadi went off with some big shot men to discuss some stuff in private. That included the principal, the leader of the Magic Guild, and the captain of the Magic Nation Knights. Rudeus woke up in an infirmary, and then Genius showed up. They kind of went off somewhere to talk in private. Seems the folks that Badigadi knocked out were all fine. He was really a peaceful guy by nature. But I must say, Rudeus, that was truly remarkable effort. You struck down a Demon King with a single preemptive attack, and he even acknowledged you as the victor. The principal believed a lone adventurer like yourself could only buy us a little time, but surely no one could have expected this. Why, you got my blood pumping for the first time in so many years. Honestly, nobody heard the discussion. Nobody knew that he gave him a free shot. Plus, Rudeus doesn't feel that he was ever in any real danger. And Rudeus is never going to tell anybody what actually happened, so he's just going to live with this whole thing saying, well, everybody believes this, but it wasn't really true. It's typical Rudeus. Like, somebody will believe something, and he just kind of goes off in his own little mind like, oh, well, it's not really what happened. Granted, he did do that with the Wyvern. He's like, no, it was already, the Red Worm was already kind of bad, whatever. But after Genius fawned over him for a little bit, he was let go. He was told to kind of stay with the dormitory until everything kind of got wrapped up. As he was leaving, Zenobia showed up and started praising him. But again, Rudeus knew that Badigadi probably could have evaded it or defended it. It was just a duel, and he couldn't have possibly beat him in a real battle. Julie once again looked really frightened as usual. Hopefully Rudeus didn't scar her for life, blasting some demon dude in half. After this, he ran to Ellen Elise and Cliff, who apparently were busy the whole time. Like, this whole invasion happened, and over here, Ellen Elise and freaking Cliff for getting it on. Rudeus ended up explaining to them that, yeah, Demon King Badigadi showed up and challenged me to a duel, and I managed to win. Huh, he's here already. Wait, did you know he was coming, Ellen Elise? Yes, I did. But he was staying with the Ogre tribe. He said that he wanted to stay there for some time, so I should go on ahead without him. Demons like him tend not to pay much attention to pass the time, you know? So I thought he'd be here in another decade at least or so. And it's only been 2 years since we parted. In any case, he's not a bad man, is he? He seems to be a decent guy, yeah. Cliff spoke up. What are you two talking about? Oh my, are you feeling jealous, Cliff, dear? Don't worry. I belong to you, body and soul. That's not like... Stop it. Rudeus is watching. Let's show him a thing or two then. Rudeus at this point just kind of parted way with them. He can hear Cliff protesting like, wait, the Demon King's a rival. This is serious. Rudeus is thinking to himself, yeah, I get you too, man. When Rudeus arrived at the dorms, he found Fitz standing a little flushed with his fist clenched. You're really strong, Rudeus. He admitted to Fitz that he was given a free shot, one that he powered up a lot, far more than the one that he used at the exam. Fitz was surprised that an intermediate spell can become that strong. Again, this is one of those things where Rudeus does something because he assumes he can do it, and it becomes something to somebody else as abnormal. Like, what they're kind of insinuating here is that Fitz is going, wait, so you can take an intermediate spell and make it that powerful? That doesn't make any sense. That shouldn't be that strong. Even Fitz right here kind of tries it out a little bit. Fitz assumed it was because Rudeus was a real master. Rudeus didn't see himself as a master though, and he only recently moved to using mostly earth magic, meaning that before then he was using mostly water spells. I knew it. You definitely get better with a discipline when you use it over and over again, right? Rudeus thought that it sounded plausible. He was getting better with creating figurines. Kind of an interesting concept. This is sort of something that's kind of another one of those aspects that this writer loves RPGs. And typically in RPGs, in a lot of them, you go towards a certain element or something like that, and you build into it, and you build into it. And if you want to build into something else, you got to kind of have to go back the track and go this way. And it's kind of left there, but then you start building something up more and more and more. You have to spend time in it. And yes, it's like a muscle. You flex the muscle enough and eventually get stronger and stronger. It's the same concept. Yeah, I guess so. I think I'm getting a little more precise, at least. You can use more mana when you keep at it too. Right, for sure. Making those figurines actually takes a lot of power, you know? Fitz seemed to enjoy the conversation. They don't typically talk about magic much. Rudius kind of wanted to continue their conversation, but Fitz had to leave because of the whole incident that was happening. The next month passed somewhat peacefully. The Magic Nations recognized Badigadi as an official state guest during this stay. Badigadi in return apologized for the hassle he caused and offered them an arm for them to study his immortality. That's a crazy good... I was kind of wondering, like, why would they allow... Okay, never mind. Yeah, I can see them having one of his arms to be able to study his immortality is kind of a big deal. I mean, they love studying other things, like they're studying blessed children, cursed children, all that kind of stuff. Being able to study that would be huge. He also agreed to instruct martial arts to the Knights of Soraya. With Badigadi taking out all of Persina's... I totally didn't realize this. Yes, because Badigadi took out all of Persina and Linea's suitors, they were finally able to return to class. You're the man, boss. Thanks again, yeah. We'll give something for your trouble soon. Didn't expect the Demon King to show up, though. We're too damn sexy for our own good, yes. I like the fact they think that Badigadi showed up there to duel them to get his hand in marriage. Like, the whole reason that Badigadi fought Rudius was because he wanted one of them. Girls, keep thinking big. Just keep thinking big, girls. Well done protecting us. I'll give you permission to squeeze Linea's breasts. Appreciate it. Rudius took up the offer and grabbed her. She immediately went, yeah, and just scratched him in the face. Zenobia pointed out Rudius' fearlessness with women, despite not pursuing them. And Cliff corrected him, saying not to bring up his condition. At this point, Cliff had actually moved closer to them and been a lot more friendly. Apparently, it seemed like Ellen Lace was actually telling Cliff a lot of things about Rudius as they spent time together. And it seemed like they were all good things because, again, he seemed like he was being a lot more friendly with him. Incidentally, everyone seemed to assume that Edis dumped Rudius because of his condition. It was the cause of the condition, people. It's so bad. Who really cares, though, Rudius thought. I don't care about her already. I'm over her. Really, I am. Additionally, Cliff seemed to have made some sort of agreement with Ellen Lace to cut back on their public show of affection. Though Rudius was wondering about Cliff, like he seemed like he was tired a lot. Like she was keeping up all night. He's really concerned about Cliff's studies. As for Julie's training, it seems like she was progressing further. He even got some assistance with a second-year dwarf to help her with making them by hand, rather than using magic, even though they were technically still training in parallel with the magic. As for Badigadi and the whole situation, Rudius kind of blamed himself as being partially at fault for all the damages. He really feared what Genius would have thought if he knew, because he was technically the one that recruited him. Again, Rudius, it wasn't technically Genius, it was Ariel, but Rudius doesn't know that. As he thought about this, the doors flung open. Bah! Badigadi strode to the podium and gazed down at everybody.
Behold, it is I, Badigadi, the immortal Demon King.
Is this seriously happening? Is he seriously wearing a skull uniform? I want to see this thing like on him just stretching out or something like that with all these cut holes for each of the arms. It was another publicity stunt. He was formally enrolled at the Renoa University of Magic. He wasn't studying much, but he had a habit of sitting down with classmates and trying to speak to them. Most of them would just panic and run away, but for those that actually stayed, they got rewarded with some stories and knowledge. And that is chapter 4. This is so good. This chapter is so good. I love Badigadi. I love his introduction here. I love the first meet with Rudius. It pretty much went, actually, honestly, it actually went exactly how I was kind of thinking it would be. Badigadi would show up. He would challenge Rudius. I never really made a prediction on who would actually win. I assume that Rudius is going to win somehow, and otherwise he's not going to die. But it turned out really funny. The idea that it pretty much lends credit to him. It assumes that Rudius won everything. Everybody makes their assumptions. Rudius doesn't like those assumptions, but he goes with it anyways. And in the end, it kind of turns this whole aspect of Badigadi finding some sort of interest in Rudius, seeing exactly what his fiancée seen in Rudius. He's now intrigued by Rudius. Again, like I was mentioning earlier, you scarred Orsted. Interesting. Do the same to me, boy. He not only heard Rudius say that he harmed Orsted, but he also tested it. And it's kind of one of those mixed things where I don't... Badigadi's been around for a long time. He's not dumb. He acts silly, but that's what he's chosen to be in himself, to live as long as he has. I think he has chosen, through his experience, probably through his conversations with his wife, he's learned something from his wife about just always laughing about everything, enjoying life in a way. But he's not dumb. It gives a sense that he's this big oaf. But he's smart. He's been living for thousands of years. Dude knows what's what. So, this isn't him going, "Oh, Rudius, huh, okay, sure, hit me." He asked for a favor. "Rudius, hit me. Hit me as hard as possible." And he even said, even use that thing that you used on Orsted. He wanted to test Rudius to see if he could pierce him, pierce his aura. He wanted to see if what Rudius said was true. He heard Rudius say that he harmed Orsted. He wanted him to show him how he did it. He was testing Rudius. And again, it goes back to I don't know what Badigadi's whole thing is with Orsted. I don't know if he's creating an army. I don't know if he's working with other people. All I do know is that he was testing Rudius right here. He got serious when he heard Orsted. I think something is building up. And I wonder how it affects Orsted himself. Are they after Orsted? Or is Orsted after them and he's just looking for some way of protecting himself? Either way, he has a big interest in Rudius. I don't think necessarily that he's involved with whoever is trying to get Orsted, because it seems like he's sort of distanced himself, like he's keeping separate. But they may know that Orsted's on the move. He may know that it's only a matter of time before they might have to fight Orsted. But again, that kind of goes counter my idea that I really don't believe that Orsted in the end is going to be a bad guy. It's going to be one of those things where I believe this writer knows how to create all these parties that all have their own interest. And it's probably going to end up being one of those things where everybody's at odds with each other because of their own interests. So we'll see where that one goes. Now, obviously, one of the big reveals that was in these chapters was Badigadi telling him that his mana pool was bigger than Laplace's. Now, yes, I do acknowledge that Kishirika did tell Rudius this. When she first met him, she told him that his mana pool was bigger than Laplace. But in that particular chapter, he kind of responds by, in his own mind, saying, wait, my what is bigger than who? At that time, Rudius was seeing Kishirika as being just some random dumb kid that was playing make-believe. So everything that she told him, he didn't really take it to heart. He just kind of played it off like, okay, whatever, girl. Yeah, you got some crazy imagination that you built. Who are your parents? Like, what are they feeding you? Here, he's taking everything Badigadi's telling him, and he's finally acknowledging it. And in this moment, he's starting to wonder about what he's saying. Wait, that's crazy. He gets excited in his own heart. Like, wow, I'm something special. This is something that's not normal. As Badigadi says, it's not normal. Even if you were training when you were young, that's not normal. And this sort of adds into my theory that I was mentioning earlier when it started hinting at this idea of the displacement and how he was born and then 10 years later the displacement incident happened. Is it connected? He starts to feel uneasy. My thought process in that whole uneasiness that he's feeling is that, was he involved in some way? Was he put through this? Because again, what he immediately thinks when he thinks about the fact that he has this big mana pool, did the man god do something to me? Did he give me a cheat ability? Did he give me some sort of cheat? Did he change me in some way? And again, that starts to lead into the whole thought process of the displacement. And that's what makes him feel uneasy. And so to add on to my theories on the idea of what it's sort of hinting at is this idea that he was brought there, and then 10 years later, displacement incident, is what if, my original thought that I was mentioning earlier was, what if somebody was testing a summoning, and he was brought with that test. And then 10 years later, now they tried it again with more mana. And then it suddenly, maybe it happened. Maybe the summon did succeed, but in the end result was this explosion that happened. The mana released, and everybody got shot in other places. This massive amount of mana. Again, what he's mentioning earlier when he was talking, I think in the last, it was specifically in the last volume, because this is my first of this volume. he was specifically mentioning this idea of like how people can't go through objects, like teleportation can't go through objects, but what if there was enough mana that it pushed it? So much mana that was built up. And then it gets me thinking, what if the man god did it? Now here's my new theory. What if the man god caused the displacement incident? He needed a lot of mana. The man god needed a lot of mana for something. So he summons Rudeus. Rudeus is brought there. And he altered him a little bit. Maybe the fact that he's an isekai was all he needed. Maybe he isekai'd somebody so they would have more mana pool because an isekai can have more mana. So he brought him over, or he, again, changed him so that he had more mana, put him into this world. Rudeus grows up. 10 years later, Man God made it happen. Rudeus has built up, I gave him this mana pool. He's been building it up. And yes, he was using it. Rudeus was using it, but he wasn't using enough. He does mention the idea that when he was creating figurines, he used a lot of mana doing that. But now he's built it up so much. Finally, he has enough. Bam. Summon. Displacement incident. That's my next theory, is the idea that maybe not directly the man god caused this incident, but maybe in bringing Rudeus here, having that mana pool, maybe that was pretty much a pocket of mana he was building. He brought him here to build a pocket of mana. And then finally something, maybe he or somebody else, trigger the summon. Rudeus is over here. He's near the thing, near the position where it's at. Trigger it. We got the mana we need. Trigger it. But we'll see. It's just crazy theories. Chat. I should always mention chat before. And chat, stop. Chat, no. Yes, the other interesting thing in this whole thing, and I've talked about it like twice so far, is just I love the whole aspect of the teleportation, how it's similar in style and color as summoning, which makes me wonder, like, how they have that smart... Teleportation is supposed to be this forbidden art. How is there so much information? Like, he is hitting a roadblock, but it seems like he is getting a lot of information about teleportation. How would he know that the symbols and the colors are the same as summoning? Why would they even have that information is a big question mark if it's forbidden. But yeah, teleportation being similar to summoning, and summoning similar, a part of enchantment. And again, my whole big crazy theories on magical implements, which I'm hoping we'll eventually get into. And if it's possible that magical implements possibly is a summon from somewhere else, and how they're so similar to utensils and lighters and stuff like that. I did like the fact they confirmed my theory on Persena and Linnea, and the idea that when Persena was smelling, she was literally smelling that his arousal wasn't there. And so that led to that whole thing. Yes, I loved Cliff. I think, as per usual for this writer, fantastic character development. I like his slow change from being this snotty, full of himself kid to realizing that he is not as strong as some people, that there are stronger people out there. That leading into his realization that Rudeus isn't a bad person, him relying on Rudeus, and eventually finding love, which I think is, ultimately in the end, I think the aspect that Rudeus helped him, but also that he found love, changed him a lot. But either way, Cliff joined the harem. Cliff joined the Rudeus harem. That's all that matters. I don't like him, but I think he's a lot cooler now. He's chilled out. And yes, I'm still curious. I want a perspective of Ellen Elise. I really do want to get into her head and find out what, if Rudeus's thought process is true, that she did see this passion in him, and that did change her. And again, that she did like the idea of somebody willing to break that curse, that it was a curse that she's no longer happy with, that has been causing her pain. But we'll see. But crazy, great volume so far. Glad I got through 4 chapters. We'll see if I can actually edit this, and if not, I'll have to cut out a chapter. We'll see if the computer can handle it. We'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Mondays. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to leave a comment. Those that are in the premieres, love talking to you guys. Thanks so much for dropping by for the premiere and chatting. Love it so much. Your guys' support means so much to me. I just here today, I was doing the live stream because this is Wednesday, and just hearing a lot of people, just saying, hey, I really like Mushoku Mondays. Thanks so much for doing it. All that stuff you guys don't understand means a lot to me. This is no joke. It means so much to me. The feedback is so greatly appreciated. And for folks that are willing to actually donate through Patreon or Tips link, becoming members of the channel, just to keep this stuff going, it means a lot to me. It really does mean the world to me. That's something I enjoy so much doing, despite how much time it takes and how much I kill my computer, knowing that it means a lot to people, that my content each Monday brings you guys some sort of joy, despite the fact that Monday is the worst day ever for a lot of people. It means a lot to me that this means so much to you guys. So just know that it's appreciated, and that your guys' support through likes, comments, just feedback, kind words, telling other people about it, sharing it out, again, supporting monetarily, all that stuff means so much to me. And I'm so glad y'all join me on this journey through Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. And those that suffer wanting to say things to answer my questions means a lot to me too. The experience for some people, and me experiencing this for the first time, is great. So thanks guys so much for joining me for it. So until next Mushoku Mondays, y'all take care. Would you be willing to introduce? Would you be willing to would you be willing to introduce us? Are you in love with someone, Regis? Are you in love with someone, Regis? I'm gonna have this on the freaking bloopers. I'm trying to talk too fast because he's all excited. Then Fitz spoke. Then Spitz. He honestly just wanted to fix it and get to swap and smit. The next day, Rudius told Fitz that he'd introduce her. The next day, Rudius told Fitz, I'll introduce you. But first, he wanted to make something very clear with Fitz. We cut to Rudius, who's at the center of the university's advanced magical training. I knew it. You definitely get better with a disciple. I knew it. You definitely get better with a disciple. Discipline. Bwahahaha.